So, okay, when it comes up. Okay, so getting recorded now. So good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining this all hands meeting. I will share my screen in a second. And just confirm that you can see it.
Looks good, Joe.
Okay. Okay. So I will go straight to the agenda. Just very quickly, an update on the overall status. I want to make sure that I don't forget to say this, but I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. This is our last all hands in 2022. And after this introduction, we will have Patrick Killingbeck from Great Lakes Water Authority give a presentation. Patrick was a plant manager in automotive industry for 32 years. He has worked at Great Lakes Water Authority for 4 years as a management professional working for Deborah Anderson in the transformation group. He's a master black belt and in Lean and Sigma, and I'm absolutely delighted that we have Patrick here. So very quickly, update. The program teams working with utilities separately to support their pilot implementation. We have a group that is reviewing the draft assessment tools. They're doing the beta testing, and we are working on a marketing video with WEF and Jackie Gerald and Zonetta English and Lisa McFadden. And WEF people. They're all involved. So before we go to Patrick, I want to just say on the left are the steps in the continuous improvement and the framework that we're using on WISE. Before we decided on this, we've looked at other things, including Lean and ADCAR and so forth. And today, Patrick will give us a presentation of a real on-the-ground improvement effort. So Patrick, I will stop sharing and then you can start sharing and let me know if you have any trouble sharing. So I stopped and you're good to go. So take it away, Patrick.
All right, I don't know why this started late, but hold on 1 second. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Computer problems.
Okay, so you'll be asking questions. Good, yep. Excellent.
Real quick, I'm going to present a project that I did with some team members at GLWA within our lab facility. This project, and I want to try to explain it a little bit at the beginning, this project started with one of our analytical labs downtown Detroit in a building. And then we had a lab in the WRF, which was an operational lab in the wastewater facility. And we were planning to move both of them together. So we had 10 people in one lab and we had 20 people in another lab downtown. And we were trying to merge those two together, which would have been almost 30 people. And very, very difficult. It was very time consuming trying to understand how the samples were going to come in, so on and so forth. So this project started, and as it started, there was a lot of concerns through management. So we said, okay, we're going to start right at the beginning. We're going to do what we call a project charter. And in the project charter, you guys really can't see the project charter, but I'm going to try to explain what we go through within the project charter. Executive summary is at the top, and then authorization, who's involved in the project, project objectives, what we plan on getting out of the project itself, expected benefits, scope and details, project milestones, and then the bottom of it, there's just numbers of what we plan to save. Within our projects, and this is a project, and this presentation was put together for our ELT team. So some of these slides I'm going to go over, some I'm just going to flip through. On all our projects, we do a quick safety lesson. And then this is a 5S overview of 5S, but it's the project in which we decided to do in the lab. And if you look at this, all 5S's is sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. I think the overall thing of this slide is the benefits, right? Because I find that people always ask, what's in it for me? The 5S benefits: improve safety, reduce cost, increased work process, improve team member morale, less waste, reduce space, and better communicated team members. So within the project, again, this is just the 5S's with a couple things at the bottom of it. But sort, we're going to get rid of everything unnecessary within the area. And again, we had 2 areas that we were bringing into one, so it was a little bit more difficult, but set in order, a place for everything and everything in its place. Shine, clean everything, right? You got to go through, clean the equipment, clean the walls, the floor, everything. Standardize, set standards that are consistent processes and procedures. That means, what are we going to do with the process? What are we going to do with the SOPs? What are we going to do with visual management? Are we going to set a standard that we want certain things within that? Sustain, maintain and review the standard. And how we try to sustain at GLWA is we put in what we call an audit. So we have an audit that is done once a month, and that audit actually has a percentage to it. And we'll go through that as I go through some of the slides. Terms and definitions. I left this in there because I want people to see we have an executive sponsor, so that's a chief level at our organization. We have a champion, which is the person responsible for the 5S project, and like the overseer. We have a project sponsor, which is the maintain level of leadership in the area. We have a zone captain, the team leader that is of the smaller zone. This is just an example of Kaizen. When we say Kaizen, what it means, change to the good. Kai is change, Zen is good. Go ahead. Did somebody have something?
No, not yet.
Okay. One thing that I do want to mention as I go through this, please put questions in the chat. I will stop every once in a while and ask if there's questions. One of the main reasons of going through this is just trying to give you a lineup of a project and how we went about doing it. That's all. So most important, here's the team members, 5S team members. Here's everybody that was involved in that project, from the executive sponsor all the way to the chemist. This is an executive summary. We did the project goal, the project time frame, the 5S team, the 5S benefits, the cost savings. To me, that's an important one, because if you're going to do a project, you want to see some cost savings within this project. Cost avoidance, we've seen 3.3 million. And hard savings, we had over 100,000. And then visual management, right? Shadow boards, standard colors, color coding practices, all that, and management at a glance. Project overview. The project goal was to implement the 5S workplace organization lean tools within the wastewater lab. Merging the 5S methodology into the process will drive overall efficiencies by eliminating the waste of motion, improving safety and reducing and eliminating risk, possible impact of morale with the team members. The project scope, the Worth Lab, we completed the lab areas on the second floor. All office areas, team members, scheduling areas, team members, workstation, printer areas, conference room, and locker areas. The current state, the wastewater lab has a large collection of boxes, equipment, beakers, chemicals, coolers, all over the lab processing area, which I'll show you in some of the pictures. The area is lacking workplace organization due to the standard work process not being established. Visual aids are not consistent. They're outdated, and stuff was very, very poorly communicated. There was no safety standard or visual management. Cleanliness of the floors, materials, check areas are neglected. Numerous safety hazards presented. So then we go into the desired state, and this is the state of what we want to see after the project. Visual management and process control implementation at wastewater lab to give team members a safe and better organization and more efficient place to work. We wanted to reduction of waste, of inventory and motion. All phases of 5S executed and sustained. The team members trained with a working understanding of 5S methodology. Sustainability through strong development and auditing process. Now, this slide here, I moved up in the presentation, and I think it's very, very important. And the reason that this is important, the team members that we established, we had a group of about 8 people that were picked and were on this team. We met once a week for probably 2 months before we did anything, right? So we came up with all our processes and procedures, and these are the things that the team thought was important to accomplish throughout this effort. So the standardized, we established these standards. 5S shadow boards and cleaning stations. You see that to the left-hand side, the picture there with the broom and the dustpan on it. Trash can footprinting, where all the trash cans went. We actually footprinted the trash cans throughout the lab. Whiteboards for better in-between shift communication. You can see the whiteboard a little bit to the right-hand side there, but we wanted people to be able to write things down between shifts. Scheduling system, they had a very poor scheduling system, and people really didn't know where they were going until an hour into the shift, and I'll show that in some future slides. Footprinting and labels of each area. So we footprinted each part of the countertops in this entire lab and the floor. If you look at the box there on the floor, you see the yellow tape around it, that's footprinting. So we're saying that that box belongs in that square. Protective equipment, visual aids, SPLs, laminated and posted, and SPL, a single point lesson. SOPs on Z Drive. We went through all the SOPs on all the sampling, every test they did, updated all the SOPs, color coding of all the incoming samples. We did sample jars and print jars and liters. We had 27 to 30 different jars within this facility with different lids. We, as a team, said when we're done, we're going to have pint jars and liter jars and 2 lids, and that's it. It's part of the standardizing. We did cart footprinting throughout the lab. We did eye wash stations, do not block. We did lab area identifier signs for each room. End of shift checklist for all chemists. We gave them a checklist in each area to fill out at the end of the day. And it had the important things on that list that we wanted them to accomplish. Is everything back in its 5S area? You know, questions like that. Glass and beaker disposal, glass cylinder and placement, paper towel and soap dispensers, standard 5S of each area standards with pictures. Do we have any questions at all?
Nothing so far, but people should speak up, or raise their hand, or put comments, questions in, if you have any so far.
There's a question from Mert.
There we
Yeah,
go,
okay.
Mert.
I can jump in. Good morning and happy holidays, everybody, by the way. Patrick, thanks for this. I have a few questions, but I definitely don't want to hog the mic. So I'll ask them and then, you can feel free to answer all or any. So I guess first is, this is great. So like what happened, like what sort of finally boiled over the milk that you all decided to take action to move with this effort? So that's one. Second is the number, the cost avoidance number, that's very impressive. I was just wondering if that 3.3 million is like over 1 year or over like multiple years. And what were the main sort of contributors? Like I know you said like time of like motion savings, time savings. I'm guessing those are the major contributors, but I was just wondering if you could pick one, what was the major contributor to that cost avoidance?
Yep. I'm going to go through the cost avoidances, right?
Mhm.
Because we have to chart those and I have to show proof, right, of them. So I'm going to go through those a little bit later in the presentation. What made us look at this and start and say, hey, this is a huge problem. And I will show some pictures of the lab itself. It was so organized and so haphazardly done. We didn't know on a daily basis if our samples were being produced the way they should have been.
Oh yeah, okay.
If that makes any sense.
Oh yeah,
It
absolutely.
was so disorganized. And when we got done, we had some people tour the lab, and through that, they actually asked, do people work in here or is this a museum? Because it was so organized, right? So this effort was a huge effort that probably took a year and a half to accomplish. And I've probably been done with it for about a year and a half now. And I go back all the time because I'm there every Friday and I tour the lab. And it's exactly the way we left it.
Like a white glove check sort of thing.
Yeah. These guys have done a great job at sustaining it. So, and then the cost avoidance and the hard cost, I'll go through those. So you'll see the charts on them, right? And the numbers. I'm going to go through them a little bit quicker. I see that it's, what time is it, Cello?
20 past.
Okay,
20
so
past.
I don't have a lot of time and I got 106 slides here. So we're going to go through some of these. Here's one of the comments that you made. What made you decide? If you look at this and how messy, boxes all over the place, stuff all over the floor, stuff all over the counter, we didn't know where the samples were being completed, right? It was that bad. So this is the current state. This is where we were before we started the project. If you look at this counter, they did 7 different samples on this counter. Look at the bottom of the cart, look under the counters, on top the counters. It was just a mess. We didn't know if we were accomplishing the process in which we established. And we also have Eagle, which is our auditor through the state, coming in and auditing us. So they also had a ton of questions like, are you guys performing the proper way? So in staying that, here's the lab after we moved back in. And this is just one example. This is the desired state for the lab. if you look at the white tape on the countertop and you look at everything that's put on the counter, as a group, the group that we had established, we sat down and said, everything that we use on a daily basis is going to go on the countertop and we're going to footprint it. So that's what you see on the countertop. Everything we use within a week or 2 weeks is going to go into the cupboard drawers underneath. And then everything after a 2-week period, we're going to put into storage. That's how we got rid of all the chaos that you've seen there. This is another good example of, this is a hood that has to vent out for chemicals, but everything in this lab is now footprinted. Everything that's in that tray is on the white footprint there. You can't see it that well, but it's there. So again, current lab, total mess. Now we're getting ready to move as a group. We're bringing the analytical people over and we're bringing the wastewater lab together. When we moved in, here's the chaos, and it became more chaotic, right? Because they brought a whole bunch of stuff. As you can see, computers and boxes, and this is all the stuff that was moving. It was a mess. So then we go into the project thought, right? We're getting ready to move. And I'm going to go over this again just real quick. Sort, keep only the necessary items in the workplace. Set in order, arrange the items to promote efficient workflow. Shine, clean, disinfect everything. Standardize. Set a standard for consistent, organized area. Now,
Patrick, real quick, there's a question. Could you please describe your 5S audits? What is the frequency of the 5S audits?
The 5S audits happen once a week by the individual on the floor, like the lead person, the champion. And then the manager does one once a month to make sure that they're sustaining what needs to be done. And I'm going to go through the audit a little bit as we get down this presentation.
Okay.
Specific areas of identification and labeling. If you notice, we did pint jars and liter jars, right? We got rid of 27 or 28 different jars and lids because it was very, very complicated. We labeled everything. If you look up on the wall there, it says sample custody. That's where they brought in all the samples that were coming in from all the different parts of GLWA and different companies. And this is the computers they used. Again, look at the tabletops. Everything has a footprint to it. This is our cooler as it stands right now. And as you look at the cooler, you're going to recognize a couple things. There's a color for each different sample. All the samples are sitting on trays. They're all labeled properly and they all have a color on them. So you can identify very quickly by walking into our coolers where the sample is, what it's for, and the date that it's supposed to be done. Outside the cooler on the left-hand side there, you got a walk-in cooler. It says the samples that we do in the colors, excuse me, that we've assigned to it. And you see it says cooler 1. We got like 3 or 4 different coolers. That's why they're labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4. Sample splitting. Once we receive a sample, we have to split it into different jars for different tests. So there's an area for that sample splitting, and it's in the receiving sample area. But there's a table there, it's labeled sample splitting. There's a cart there. The cart is footprinted. You see all the jars on the cart. That explains what's going to be split into the next sample that's coming in. That's what they're going to split into. Again, this is the color coding area in the receiving sample area. If you look to the second picture, all the way to the right at the end, that's the table on the left-hand side. So we have a sample receiving area, everything comes in, we bring in the sample, we take custody of it, we split off the samples, and then they go into the cooler. Now I'm going to just show some pictures of receiving and things we did to label things. All the offices, every room in the building, in the lab, has that exact, it says what the room is, the room number. Now we're getting into 5S shadow boards. So this is the shadow board that I assembled for the lab. There are 8 of them within the lab, throughout the lab. I always put things like this in a presentation, this next slide here, because I think it's very important when we talk about people. You always have to have the people involved in the process, in the changes that are taking place, so they take ownership of it. The whiteboard behind the 3 individuals that are there is a part of the process that we were trying to outline and establish and create an SOP, and they were proud of that, so we took a picture of it. This is their scheduling. The one on the left is the scheduling of how they scheduled people coming in. On the right is what we went to. So it has who's involved and where they're scheduled on a TV screen. So when they come in for the day, that's in the office where their desk is. They come in, they can see automatically where they're going to go and where they're going to work. Again, this is just the S's again. This is the sustain part of it. Sustain is maintain and review standards by auditing. Here's the audit itself. We made it very, very simple. There's probably 14 questions on this audit. We gave them, or no, excuse me, this is the actual lab standards. We created a standard list of everything within the lab and then took a picture of it. So when someone is auditing, they can actually refer back to this standard and say, oh, it's supposed to be like this. Here's the picture of what it's supposed to be. Is it that way? Then we give them, and we let them pick out the theme behind this board, but this is the months and what % they get on the audit, right, throughout the year, so we can track it. We also have a looped system within the audit, and this is a tracker. So they put this number in there in the tracker after they do their audit, and it goes through a full looped system that it notifies everybody of what their score was, so on and so forth. And if you look at the scores at the bottom, this was the lab in March, 50%. Then we went to 60%, 62, 80, 82, 94, 94. Today, they average between 95 and 100%. Here's somebody holding up an audit. It's just what we call a mock audit. As we train them, Linda is actually one of the managers of the lab. Here's the audit, and I'm sorry for overstepping that, but this is the audit. Very, very simple. Go safety, sort, puts all the 5 S's in there, gives you an audit statement, and then you rate it a 1, 2, or 3, like you see at the top there. And it's a bad, okay, and then great. And you see where this score is, it's highlighted. That score, when they put that in, I got all the numbers done to where it gives them a % at the end. They don't have to do any math. Okay, here's the estimated cost, which we talked about. As we look at this fire hazard, unsafe condition. So we put the injury type, burn, both physical and physiology. You look at that and it says 1 occurrence per year. Direct cost, we took the cost of the employee, and there's the savings. So on this one slide, we saved 334.2, which is huge. All these costs go through OSHA. OSHA has a cost estimator, and that cost estimator, because I have to show evidence, the cost estimators at the bottom. If you see that highlight at the bottom, if you go into that site, that's the estimator, and all these numbers will show proven. So again, I'm not going to go over these slides 100%, but this is a fire marshal violation that happened. stuff on top of the cabinets, and you look, it says contusion, multiple injuries, respiratory. This slide, we saved 403.6, and this is influence cost. This
Patrick,
is
Shelamy want to direct a couple questions in the comments. You want to do that, Cello?
Yes, we have a comment. How do you measure and monitor morale? Also, is this part of the weekly audit?
yes, morale is on there. It's at the bottom. It asks about team members sustaining or their morale, and they have to give them a percentage point, which is 9 times out of 10 comes from the management once a month. And so we look at morale as standards. We look at morale as we set things in place. Are the team members following those procedures, right?
Yeah.
And I think that creates morale. What's the other one?
The other question is, if there are audit findings, how are these addressed?
When I talked about the closed loop system, and again, I'm not spending a lot of times on these slides because we're pushed with time. But when I talked about the closed loop system, that closed loop system has a spot in it that anything that is found gets kicked back to the manager. And when they have their meetings, it gets brought up in the meetings, and they do what we call a root cause analysis or a corrective action on that procedure. So there's nothing that falls through the cracks. If there's something that is written on that audit, it is followed through with a corrective action.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
That's
Possible, okay, possible electrical fire and shock. If you look at those numbers, 576.8. Here's one where walking clearance violation. We did laceration and sprain. It was 109.5. Here's one unsafe condition, water on floor. If you see the ceiling leaking, the next one was a water eye wash station that was put into the wall with no drain. That's why the trash can is underneath it. So huge problems. If you look at this slide, as we did the numbers, it came out 522.5. Potential fire damage, the fire blanket, the fire alarm, everything was blocked. This slide came out 836.4. We teamed with the lab because of a safety violation that they had, and it was a PPE violation where employees weren't wearing their safety glasses and whatnot. So as we went through the violation, here's the employee that we actually caught with her gloves on. You see her mask is on, her glasses are on, her lab jacket is on. So we like to put that stuff in presentations too, right? We caught her working safely. Here's not wearing PPE, things that can happen: burn, vision loss, amputation. That came out 452.6. Cited safety violation. This one came out 22.6. So the safety cited violation improvements. One of the violations was, and anybody that's working in a lab or has anything that needs to be identified as chemicals find it very hard for the employees to fill out the sticker. You see the stickers on the beakers on the left-hand side. Those stickers have to be filled out for every chemical that's poured into another bottle. So what did we do as a group? We said, we're going to go get bottles that are already labeled and have the numbers already on them. So that's what we put in place, and it worked very well. Another safety violation, employees didn't know how to pull up the SDS sheet, the safety data sheet. So what we did is we went in and we put them all online, and then we created a single point lesson for the safety data sheet, how to pull them up, and then laminated them and stuck them by every single computer within the lab. So if there was ever a safety issue, they got all the directions right there at the computer. Financial summary on cost avoidance ended up being 3.2, which again, huge. All those numbers are backed up through OSHA. Cost savings time study. And when I throw stuff like this in a presentation, I throw it there to show people that we're actually doing the time studies. And we did one on color coding, we did one on sample receiving, scheduling process, and locating supplies. That's the time study. Now we're going to go into the hard savings. These are the costs that we said this is a hard saving, went right to the bottom line. So in saying that, we did hard savings on color coding. We did them on sample receiving process. We did them on scheduling process, which I showed you the way we went from scheduling on a board to the TV screen. And we did it on locating supplies. And it came out 43.9. Time spent receiving supplies. If you look at the time study that was up there, we were averaging 30 to 40 minutes trying to find a broom in this lab. That's how difficult it was. When we put these shadow boards in, there was huge cost savings. In the shadow boards, the jars that we talked about, reducing down to 2 jars, the cleaning supplies, looking for, and then finding lab equipment, the cost savings, hard cost savings ended up being 56.5. And here's the metrics, right? So on color coding, if you go to color coding on this slide and then go all the way to the end, we saved 25 minutes. Sample receiving process, we saved 25 minutes. Scheduling process, we saved 15 minutes. Locating supplies, 17 minutes. Shadow boards, 29 minutes. Finding lab equipment, 85 minutes. Now, when I say that, those are very low averages, because we never want to report something higher than what it is. So we take the lowest average. But there's huge savings there if you look at it. The financial summary for the hard savings ended up being 100.4. Within the process of doing a presentation, we always want to learn what went right, what went wrong. So I'm just going to go over a couple of these. What went wrong? GDI, which is our cleaning company, not completing their scope of work. Very high turnover rate in the lab throughout the 5S project. Communication not consistent. Move happened way too quickly. We had things moving from both labs and it was just a mess. Me, which is the LSS coach, which means Lean Six Sigma coach, and the 5S champion should have communicated and worked with director of maintenance from the start of the project, because we had some maintenance issues. What went right? We trained and retrained and trained and retrained the employees. So we felt that went right because everybody was on board on what should have happened. Empowered lab team members at the start of the project to establish ownership. So we gave them all responsibilities throughout the project. Reviewed and updated the SOPs prior to the lab implementation. So we had all the paperwork for the SOPs and the tests that were being performed done prior to. Lab team members had a great example to learn from on another 5S project that I did in Pump Station 1. A greater focus was placed on efficiency improvement. And we conducted the mock audits sooner in the project to get everybody on board of sustaining it. Professional suggestions. This is just a part that I tell the ELT team, the upper management, this is where I think we need to go from here. So I told them layered process audits. Layered process audits are audits that are layered throughout the company, right? A supervisor does one a week, a manager does one every 2 weeks, upper management does one every month. And to sustain the processes in which we're putting in. So LPA, layered process audit, is a very, very effective way of doing that. Then I told them PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act. Plan, Do, Check, Act is, I'm not going to go over that, is a form, which is this, and it gives you a task description. It gives you assigned to a team member, and then you go through the Plan, Do, Check, Act. What part of it is done, and then a start date and a completion date. So it's a tracking form of all the stuff within this project that we're doing, and are we staying to a timeline? This is a slide that is for benefits of footprinting, and I'm just going to go over the headers: improve safety and ergonomics, increase engagement, and continuous improvement. Footprinting is very, very, very effective tool. Now, this is the most important part of this presentation, are the pictures. I always think that pictures explain, you know, they say 1,000 things, right? And we've heard that expression a million times. Well, they do. Here's the new eye wash station. You remember the eye wash station in the wall with a trash can underneath it? Oops, excuse me. Here's the new one. When they put it in, it was put in, great improvement. The team went through and they actually improved it more and footprinted it. And it says, do not block, right? Because we don't want anybody blocking that in case somebody gets hurt. Sample receiving before and after, just a whole bunch of stuff on the desk. And then after, you can see after it's footprinted, everything in its place for everything and everything in its place. The first picture there is the cooler, our old cooler. Look at the labels. Look at the stickers, all different colors. We had no clue what that even meant. Now look at the lab cooler. The lab cooler has a designated area for each sample. It has a sticker to color or to tell us what sample it is at a glance. It also has a label that tells us what test is going to be performed on that jar. Here's an example of just beyond the receiving area. It was the incoming dishwasher area. All the carts. This is, oh, I don't know why that keeps moving. I'm sorry. This is an example of the carts themselves, how that they did business. They just threw everything in there. When we got done, if you look at the floor, the yellow footprinting, we footprinted rows where all the carts would be.
Patrick, a couple of questions came in.
Okay.
One is, did you perform root cause analysis on the high turnover, such as salaries change, etc.?
We're actually doing that now within the lab itself. We did do that. We're doing it now company-wide. But in the lab, we did that, and we found that we had a higher turnover rate back in the day. And I say that because there was no organization. It was a mess to work in. People were very discouraged. They couldn't find anything. Today, we have procedures on everything. We have footprinting on everything. We have single point lessons. We have, you know, it just goes on and on and on. So now, if you were an employee, to find a broom or a dustpan, it takes 2 seconds. Prior to, it took 30 minutes. So you can see where employees would be more on board of sustaining this process and staying with the company, because we've got it together now compared to not having it together. What was the other question?
What was the biggest challenge? What resistance did you experience, and how did you deal with it?
The biggest challenge, I think, was the move, right? Because we were moving 2 groups together. We had a group downtown that was probably working together for 20 years. And then we had a group at wastewater that was working together for 15 or 20, right? We were merging all those people together, all those personalities, all those thought processes. we were merging all that together, and it was very, very difficult. Yet, after we did all the stuff that I talk about, right, the footprinting, the SOPs, the people, when they came together, sort of merged very easily. It seemed to go off without a hitch. A lot easier than what we thought it was going to be. And we dedicated that to all the process things that we did.
Okay, one more. What is the approximate number of hours spent on implementing 5S in the lab?
Well, we spent 6 months as a group. I'll say 5 months as a group prior to doing anything. This project took a year and 3 months. So within the year and 3 months, you could add up 40 hours a week, right? A full work week for one person for a year and probably 4 months.
Okay.
So it wasn't
Sorry.
simple.
Another question they're coming in. Aside from the lessons learned, how did you measure the perception of the people involved about the 5S methodology?
At first, it was very tough, right? Because they didn't understand it. They didn't. So that was one of the things we did prior to moving anything or touching anything, is we trained. And if you heard lessons learned, I said trained, retrained, trained, and trained again. We kept training them on the 5S. At the beginning, a lot of people said, oh, you're just going to add work to us. You're just going to make it harder for us. We had to prove to them throughout this that it was benefiting them. It was saving them time. And then the morale just took over. I mean, it once they used the system, it worked like a charm. And one thing that we did do, and I want to mention, is we didn't go into all these areas. There's probably, if you looked at different labs within this entire lab, there's probably 10 different labs in this entire lab, different areas of different tests. We didn't go in and 5S everything at one time. We did the receiving area first. We footprinted it. We gave them SOPs. We gave them single point lessons. We gave them visual management. And then we allowed them to work within that process for about 2 weeks. And then we came back and said, what do you guys think? And every single person says, this is exactly what we need through the entire lab. So we got a buy off prior to actually implementing all this.
Yeah, questions are coming in. So what is the biggest non-planned benefit that was gained during 5S implementation?
The biggest non-planned.
I think it was something like unexpected, or I would guess.
Yeah. I think it's the footprinting, because we didn't really decide to do that at the beginning. And once we did it, everybody was saying it's too much. It's too much. There's, it's just too much. You're telling me I got to put this back exactly right there. So the footprinting was probably the most effective once we got done with the lab, but it was the most pushed away or not accepted process at the beginning until we did that week or two, right? We footprinted the area, let them work in it within a week or two, and then they all approved it.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll let you know when new questions come in.
Okay, I'm going to keep going here. This is the BOD part of the lab. Again, if you look at the left-hand side picture, that's the way they did business. There's just boxes and logbooks and books and cords and just stuff everywhere. The right-hand side is what we ended up with, right? That's exactly what we use per the day. Everything else underneath the cupboard for a week or two, and then everything else in storage. Same thing here. If you look, this is right off the BOD area. If you look at that countertop, look at the Kleenex, the paper towel. I don't know why this keeps moving. I'm not touching it. The paper towel underneath, the way that they had beakers all over, nothing aligned to where it's supposed to be. to the right-hand picture, everything footprinted, outlined, everything exactly where it's supposed to be. Same thing with this picture. You can go down the row here and look. We established where everything was going to go, and that's where it stays. And again, if you look at the equipment itself, stuff on top of it in the left-hand picture, stuff on top of it, papers, boxes, paper boxes. Look at the red tape on the counter or on the cupboards. They were trying to list where things were going to go as we were bringing them into the lab. And then you look at the right-hand picture, all the equipment outlined, exactly what's supposed to be there. See, we added a white tray there at the end for the sample itself that's done on that counter. If you look to the right of that picture, there's a spot on the wall. That's for the logbook. Then there's a glass disposal. That's also footprinted at the bottom.
Patrick, I just want to remind you, we have 8 minutes left and 25 slides. And I think you've
doing good then.
you've presented overwhelming evidence, before and after. So to allow more questions at the end, maybe if you could, provide some summary and stuff like that.
Yep, I'll try to get through this as quick as possible. I'm going to flick through these pictures because of time. But if you look at the first picture, disorganized, all the crap on the shelf, then very organized. Just what we need. First shelf, second, everything outlined. Same thing here. Look underneath the shelf in the testing area, buckets of material. Look at the second picture, everything outlined. Same thing here. Test, everything outlined. Everything all over the counters, all over carts. Second picture, everything outlined, including the computer and the computer screen. Same thing here. Samples done all over cardboard. We put the trays there, outlined everything. Same thing here. And again, I think these pictures tell a lot because it was very disorganized. You look at that first picture and then look at the second. Same thing there. Same thing there. If you look at all these samples, then look at the second picture. They have the samples identified on the white tape on the countertop. Same thing here. We went so far as to label, you see the soap there by the sink, where the soap goes. Same thing here. Same thing there. Look at the disorganization. This was an everyday work time and how they did carry out the samples or the work. And then the next picture is how it ended up, right? So huge improvements. You can look at, this was an entire sample area for operations, totally disorganized, everything in its place and everything organized in the next picture. Same thing here. This is a hood. Same thing there. So how much time do I got now?
You have, we have 6 minutes to the top of the hour.
Okay, I'm going to try to do this in 3. So I thought it was very important going through stuff like that. And again, we just wanted to give some kind of an outline of a project and the things you go through, cost savings, evidence, all that kind of good stuff. And then I put this slide in the other day. This is not something that I presented to the GLT team, but I thought it was important for us in the WISE group to understand this. And change is hard, but necessary. Change is very difficult, yet without change, processes fail. Change is different, takes us all out of our comfort zone. Change adds value to our procedures and processes. Change helps engage people and technology, which those are all true. We know those to be true. Sometimes we don't like coming out of our comfort zone. So I think it's just some bullet points to think of when we think of change. And then I put a risk of if you don't change, what happens? And stagnant organization can be significant cause of low employee morale, right? We had a ton of employee issues at the beginning. When we straightened all this out, now we're sustained a little bit better in this lab, which affects overall performance and causes some workers to seek opportunities elsewhere. Those companies that don't change can be stagnant and not developed. Our current world is consistently evolving in terms of technology. Having the ability to face these challenges head on will only develop the company as a whole, but also those who work within it. And again, I put those two statements at the bottom because if we don't change, if we don't look at continuous improvement as an everyday activity, we will be stagnant. And as a company, you never want to be in that spot. So with that said, I am done. Cello, I don't know if you want to say anything.
Yes, I have a couple of things, so maybe you can stop sharing, and I will quickly show a couple of things before we leave. So we had originally planned to conduct a Mentimeter exercise with some questions to get your feedback on what challenges you may be experiencing in pilot implementation and case studies, to then indicate what type of help you would like to see from the program team on your pilot work. And so they were just two formats. This was a scale that just a few key items, and this was a kind of free form. So instead, we don't have time to go through this, but if you have ideas on what we can do to help you with the pilot programs, whether it's training or whatever, please let us know. And I want to thank Patrick for the presentation today. It was very informative, and I want to, again, we have 2 minutes left. I want to wish everybody Merry Christmas and New Year, and we'll see you in the next year. Any final questions for Patrick?
Yeah, as the questions come in, one statement that I want to make. This was performed throughout me joining the WISE group. We are in the process now of GLWA, reverting all of our forms, all of our findings, technology forms, people forms to the WISE program, right? Because we think the layout is very, very, very good. So we're in the process of doing that. And this was just some slides that I presented to the ELT team, which is our upper management, for an improvement on a project.
Hey, Cello, before you leave, Chris Wu and others are interested in getting a copy of the slides as well.
Oh, I'll say that too. I appreciate everybody's questions. What that tells me is, we're engaged, we're listening, we're wondering, and that is a good thing. So I do appreciate all the questions. Yes,
and I answered that the slides will be posted. We can work that out, Patrick, to just...
you have them on the site. Yeah.
Yes, I have the slides for your full presentation on the lab, that may be even longer. And I have this both for the lab and for the pump station #1. So I will post these for everybody and give you the link so you don't have to browse around too much. So thank you very much. It's top of the hour. Have a wonderful day, and we'll stay in touch. Take care.
Cello, can you stay on?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Best to you, Cello, and I will talk with you soon. I did have two individuals. This is Marco Tello wishing you happy holidays. But I had two individuals that joined our meeting because we have now brought on board a new chief of water advocacy and customer appeals. And so I'm just actually having Ron Mills shadow me on what we're doing and a lot of the work that you've been doing. I think it's just going to be very insightful for him to get the real